we met with some people from China who had just come out of, or were in the midst of full.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. We had worked with a team of guys in China a couple of years ago, helping them get a restaurant off the ground, and they had come through or something. They were coming through town, and we sat down and asked them what it was like in China, and it was sobering to hear their thoughts. And I think that got us, that really put it front of mind for us even before it was even here in Seattle, was just to see the images and the pictures of mass quarantine or lockdown. I don't know what they call it in China.
Well, yeah. And Mark, it was confusing. Well, everyone was confused. I had been in South Korea about 2 weeks before that, and they only had a handful of cases. And the entire city was almost on lockdown. And it was so shocking to be there when I think America had the same amount of cases, or even our own state had the same amount of cases. And yet they were reacting so much different than we were. And so I came back saying,
the train is coming.
Yeah, like I don't understand why America is, how it doesn't feel like a big deal here yet. And so I think a combination of all these things had us having conversations about the virus before a lot of local businesses were, because we just had warning flags pop up in different ways.
We had an international travel plan. We send our crew to one restaurant anywhere in the world once a year to kind of go learn from. And Chef, you were supposed to be in Tokyo, what, today or tomorrow or something? I was supposed to be in Spain at Astro X Bari. And so I think in our heads, we were looking at other places around the world more carefully. Brian was in South Korea. Nice timing there, Brian. Yeah, maybe that's what put it top of mind. I was actually in New York City doing some stuff for James Beard Awards when the first case in Seattle broke out, and it was sort of surreal to watch that from a distance and to see it unfolding when you're not in your own home, when you're not in your own city. And we came back from that. We had this meeting, and we just said, okay, like clearly there are new rules here. I think we're going to need to start from scratch, and what is that going to look like? So.
And Brady,
a year ago.
Yeah. Well,
I think we're talking about the early March. I got to look up on my calendar, but
right. It feels.
I'm actually going to look that up because I'm curious about that.
It feels at Creative Live on the 1st of March, we shifted gears pretty dramatically when we saw the rise in cases overseas and was spreading to other countries, and we knew that. I think we operated under the belief that it was going to be here sooner than. I think people admitted, or maybe rather than sooner than the mainstream. But I'm curious, as you know, I know it was going through my head as an entrepreneur. So let's just go back to that. You know, you're all in various places. You see, as Brian said, people behaving differently in other countries that have been, we're further along on the curve, and. You know, whether you're a restaurateur or any entrepreneur, what were some of the things that you were thinking about? And then what was, you think, the timeline between you all sitting down and taking action? Because I think, you know, in the same way that's one of the ways that you interrupt a virus is taking early action. The same thing is true for an entrepreneur. The faster you can move, not just to be out in front of the competition, but to be able to innovate and test and see what works and what doesn't, and how you can be of service to the community. What was describe the timeline between that first meeting, what was going through your heads as creators and entrepreneurs, and then, you know, the time to shift and actually take action?
Which one of you guys wants that? I mean, I looked at the timing. I was in New York March 1st. We had that meeting, Chase, on Wednesday, March 4th. And I think that was the first time in earnest we discussed it as a team, sort of batting around ideas of what it would look like to start from scratch. What would it take to keep our whole staff employed, you know, given a new set of rules? And of course, we didn't know the rules at that point. Everyone was using the phrase out of an abundance of caution, in order to justify almost wearing a mask, or to justify shutting down a school, or to justify, these things. Speaking to Brian's point, like it was almost like we were one of those dreams where you're moving in slow motion. You're like, it's a bad dream, but I can't go quick enough. It seems like the country was going slow, and that was a 3 hours of sitting around the table, just starting there. I think we shut down, or we announced it a week later, and we launched the drive-through a week later. Is that the time that you guys were?
The meeting, we were actually fully prepared to go live with it the next Monday. We had made the decision to make the switch, but even after the weekend, I think Monday felt like it was too early.
Yeah, Brady, you even said, we could pull a trigger. We could do this in 4 days.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the question, was like, great, you're sitting at a table, want to shut down your restaurant and open up 3 new ones. It was to figure out how to make that happen. And I think 4 days was the soonest we thought we could pull it off.
The stakes were so high because we've only, in 70 years, we've closed twice. Like where people had reservations and we told them, you can't come in. So every snowstorm we've ever had, every accident, every fire in the building, everything, we've always opened.
It's like a point for us, right? Like it's a place
point of pride, of course. Yeah.
Figure out how to do it.
And so here we were talking about picking up the phone and calling hundreds of guests and saying, we're sorry, you can't come in. This was long before other restaurants really had started closing, or the governor had said, we have to close. It was, I think it was a hard emotional decision to make that move when people rely on us so much.
Like 1,000 people reservations between private dining and the floor that we're canceling, right? So this is before restaurants have been told to shut down, or even told that was like a really good idea. I remember the next day, there's 4 or 5 people in the office making phone calls, and a couple of them were in tears, and it was like, oh boy, what's going on? And that very first response was, we're calling people and saying, hey, we're going to shut down the fine dining piece. We're going to open up some other ideas here in order to navigate through this thing. And the people who we were calling were thanking us. They were saying, thank you for what you're doing. I don't mind canceling my reservation at all. And the emotion built up in the office just around talking to these people about this decision that we had been weighing heavily on our hearts and brains for a week or two. It was such a release to hear the city receive it, the idea with open arms. So I think it was scary. It was scary to say, hey, we're going to shut this thing down.
Understood.
I also have never run a burger joint before, or any of this stuff. So it was like, hey, let's take a model that's been working for 70 years and just experiment with baking bagels. Or
well, I want to go to Chef just for a second here. Before we do, I want to welcome everyone who's joining. I'm Chase Jarvis, the founder and CEO of CreativeLIVE. We're broadcasting here starting today 24/7 at creativelive.com/TV. And I am happy to be joined by some legends in Seattle and the national food scene, the Canlis brothers, Mark and Brian, and the James Beard Best New Chef, Brady Williams. So for those of you, again, who are just joining, the Canlis restaurant here in Seattle has taken a leadership role in food service around the country by pivoting a 70-year-old restaurant concept, which is fine dining here in Seattle. It is the place where if you want to have a special occasion, you go to Canlis. And they have, in the space of just a matter of a week or two, pivoted and are now doing burgers. And, well, I'll let them talk about all the things they're doing, but it's just a complete revolution for them and an adaptation in really crazy times in order to keep their business running, but also to be an amazing service to the community. So welcome, and we'll be on the phone with these guys here for the next 60 or so minutes. I know we need to keep an eye on Chef's time because he's got about 500 burgers to cook, but I wanted to pass the mic to Chef Brady. And when, Mark and Brian said from a business perspective, all right, we're seeing these things, and I understand just from what Mark was saying, we could do this in 4 days. How did you pivot your team and your kitchen? And what was the inspiration behind going from steak à poivre to burgers and ice cream sandwiches? How'd you do it, and what was the inspiration behind it, Brady?
That's a great question. Well, I mean, we did it out of necessity. That was the inspiration. There wasn't necessarily, we had this in our back pocket, ready to pull this out. I mean, I think everyone on our team kind of knew where things were heading, and knew that the threat of the virus affecting business was real and imminent. So, I mean, it just started with a simple conversation with my sous chef team, which is about 6 people, kind of letting them into our thinking early, and getting them behind the idea. And then from there, it's just a matter of kind of mobilizing everyone, delegating and writing, basically just writing an action list of like, what do we need to do as quickly as possible to pull this off. And so, obviously going from a kind of like a tasting menu, fixed menu to a burger joint, is about as hard of a turn as you can make. I mean, for us, it was just a matter of ordering, getting the equipment that we need. I mean, our executive team that was in that initial meeting, all had their roles that they played. And, yeah, I think it was just like, once we made the decision to do it, everyone realized, okay, we're behind this, we're going. And it was just like, no looking back. So,
this was like there's a different feel in the restaurant before that decision and after. And I remember asking the staff, like, hey, we have this idea, but you don't have to do it. Like, we kind of made it a all volunteer thing. And just the feeling in the restaurant when we said, okay, this is going to be our move, and this is how we think we can navigate this thing. There was just a sense of hope and of energy, and like, hey, put me in, coach. And
yeah, the vibe was one of like uncertainty and kind of, like tentativeness and tension, because we all knew there wasn't really a plan, fear. And then, yeah, to Mark's point, once we announced this, it was like, everyone was like, okay, we can get behind this. Let's rally around this. Let's do something. And I think within days or a day of announcing this to our staff, we saw large restaurant groups around the country shut down, people losing jobs. And so, I mean, I think everyone was like, let's give this a shot and see where this goes.
Well, what helped you all see that this was, sorry for interrupting you there, either Brian or Mark, I think I might have stepped on your toes there for a second, but my wife, Kate, and I are proud supporters of Seattle's food universe. We're partners in some restaurants, and we saw a huge different scope of reactions from the restaurateurs in Seattle. And I'm using this as not just an example. This is not just about food and restaurants, right? This is about creators and entrepreneurs all around the world. And we're just looking at it through this lens of the restaurant scene here in Seattle, which is one of the first and hardest hit areas. So, there were folks that are, that have 10 to 15 spots here in the city, or certainly in the Northwest. And we saw some entirely closed, lay off 800 people. We saw others go to a limited schedule. And, was there anything about the ecosystem that made you guys do the things you did? Or was it, was it a lot of introspection? Is like, what's the canvas response to this? And again, by extension, I'm trying to put myself in the minds and the hearts of the entrepreneurs all over the place, because a lot of businesses are being closed. And for the folks who do want to go forward, what is it that they're doing, and what's the mentality behind it? Because I think that's the most important thing in this time. So talk to us about, how you feather. There's a big range. And how did you decide that you were going to pivot? You were going to lower the price point. You were going to talk to me about that.
I would, we're an old restaurant, right? We've been around 70 years, but we have been working for the last 10 or 15 years on getting younger and more agile and more nimble. In fact, every January we close our restaurant down for a little bit of time, and we go away with just the executives. There's about 6 or 7 of us, and we reinvent the restaurant again. We're always having this conversation, which is, how do we make the restaurant feel new this year? How are we not resting on our laurels? How do we not get stuck? How do we continue to innovate? It's one of the reasons why we are thriving as a business, and we're 70 years old, which isn't super common. And so as a result of those conversations over the last several years, Brady has radically changed the way we source. We've changed our menu. We've changed our style of dining. We've changed so much. We haven't changed our values. We haven't changed the mission of our company, but we've changed what it looks like all the time. And then we started doing things like these pop-ups in our parking lot, and we built a Shake Shack, and we did a milk bar, and then we did a giant, I don't know if you ever came, Chase, but we did this hot tub pool Hawaiian party with 1,000 people drinking White Claw every night in our parking lot with DJs. And we've trained our staff to be able to like turn on a dime and not just get stuck in one thing. We want to be nimble.
Underestimated parts of our story, or the untold part, is our staff was really prepared for this based on the last couple of years of Hawaiian nights, pop-ups, and New Year's parties, and 2,000 people a day in our parking lot out of a shipping container, kind of, and it's like, we weren't expecting it, but prepared us for this moment. So yeah, our staff that was here for that knew how to think outside the box. They knew how to make more from less and be resourceful. And do something a little crazy that doesn't make sense fully, but works out in the end.
And that's not unique to Canlis, right? I mean, Chase, to your point, like there's so many entrepreneurs, there's so many just owners and leaders of businesses, small and large, who have that mindset, right? It's a piece of Canlis' story that doesn't get told a whole lot because the restaurant's been here a long time. But under the underpinnings of Canlis, it certainly has this ethos, this idea that we've got to be creating all the time. Otherwise, I don't think we deserve the reputation that we have. And so that's something you're earning nightly. And in this case, it happened to put us to have us be more prepared for something like this. But look, it's not unique to Canlis, and I don't think our story as a restaurant is particularly unique either when it comes to this kind of response. I think all of us are asking the question all the time, okay, what can I do? And what do I have at my disposal? What can we pull together? How can I help? I think that's the response, the responsibility of business all the time is to be saying, how do we engage here? How do we engage our employees? How do we engage the people around us, our neighborhood? And so to me, this was, sure, it's been described as a pivot, which is, I already have pivot fatigue, but it to me is more accurately a response of 115 employees saying, this is going to be hard. What can we do? And we were there's a restaurant on a freeway, so drive-through was like, no brainer. If there's one book I could recommend right now to people to read, it's Simon Sinek's The Infinite Game. In fact, I host a conference in New York City called the Welcome Conference. You can go check out. He did a speech about 20 minutes long called The Infinite Game. And it's this mindset where you're in it for forever. Like the rules will always be changing. But if you have this mentality that you're never going anywhere, like failure is not an option. He talks about why we lost the Vietnam War, and how do we win every battle and yet lost the war? And it's because the United States had a finite mindset. We're going to go in, do something, and get out. And whereas the Vietnamese said, this is our home, and we're not going anywhere. We're in this forever. And so at Canlis, when things started getting hard, how Simon.
What's that?
Can't wait to hear Simon's opinion of your summary of his speech. This is gonna be great.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
But,
maybe you get like a B+ somewhere in that range.
Yeah, maybe. But what was cool was when things started getting harder on here and slow. We never even talked about closing the restaurant. We talked about, all right, the rules are different. What does the city need? Obviously, they don't need fine dining. I think it was Brady who first said, let's turn this restaurant into a drive-through. I think Mark was the first one that maybe said, let's build a bagel
in New York City. The guy who owns Shake Shack, who runs Shake Shack, said, what you guys ought to do is a drive-through. I was like, actually, he was joking, but it stuck.
And so what got crazy is I had a baby, our third, and so then I suddenly disappear into the ether of newbornness. And then Mark and Brady and the team, you guys opened 3 restaurants back to back in 3 days. That's where things got nuts.
Well, say more about what you mean by that, because you have one physical building, but 3 restaurants. Talk to me more.
Yeah,
well, you guys did it.
Timing of having a baby also. That was.
That was.
Hey, what do you think of that timing, Brady? I mean,
we were all giving birth that week. Jeez.
Yeah, we have 115 kids.
None as well as Mackenzie. Brian's got a beautiful baby boy, and that was the timing of any child is perfect in my opinion. But we shut down a fine dining restaurant and opened on Monday. We opened a drive-through that was moving. I don't know. What did we sell? 1,000 burgers.
1,000 burgers.
2 hours.
5 hours.
Next day, we opened a bagel shed in our parking lot. Just with this pop-up idea of taking a big wood-fired oven we got out there, and one of our expediters, she is a really talented baker and comes from the Lower East Side of Manhattan. And Brady, who's from Brooklyn, does like a legitimate bagel. And those are hard to come by in this town. And so we were like, well, why don't we bake bagels? It was just the idea of like, how many jobs can we create here? And sometimes I think of Canlis as like a model of inefficiency. Like 115 people just to serve 6 dinners a week. And so the third idea was home delivery, CSA boxes from the farms and home delivery of family meals. Just if our servers can take food from the kitchen to the table, then they could take it, put it in their car and bring it to your home. So those are when we say 3 restaurants, those are 3 different concepts that we opened in order to create enough jobs.
Breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
And groceries.
And groceries, and grocery delivery, and now piano live stream at night. But it was, the response was wonderful and terrifying. Mark, how many people screamed at you trying to manage traffic on Queen Anne?
A couple of screamers. Yeah, we hired a professional crew of 4 guys. We had 4 of our people out there. Every time we turn this thing on, the lines. It's the only traffic in Seattle. We will say that. The one amazing thing about these days is that there's no traffic in a city known for traffic. But, there were lines that stretched 6 and 7 blocks around the restaurant. And that's just so inconvenient for the neighbors. So then we had to figure out, well, shoot, we do one thing and create a bad thing at the same time. So how can we manage that? And I spent a week marshaling traffic, which... if the restaurant thing doesn't pan out, I kind of feel like I'm natural. I'm just gonna be honest. I feel like I'm my
you get real serious though. You kind of
go. I had 4 different. You
needed a whistle, is what you needed.
A whistle and a crossing guard, like a stop sign.
I'd be over whistling, I think.
I can just see it right now, directing traffic. Move from the...
Anyway, it was nuts. I think it was a car every 45 seconds. We were pushing through there, and that was a volume that eventually we just thought was untenable. There was no way to not shut traffic down and also serve all these burgers and do it in a way that we felt comfortable with. So we ran that thing for a week and a half, and then on Monday...
Is that all? Oh, God.
It feels like 100 years.
We turned around. Remember Monday morning? I'm saying it's been every Monday. Monday morning we came in, and every one of us on the team sat around this table that I'm sitting at, and we said, is this the right move for the coming week? And nobody wanted to say no, but we all felt it. And 15 minutes...
Well, yeah, because we had created a business that people loved we had 1,000 people or more coming every day. We were able to pay our bills. Like, we were one of the few restaurants in the country that was with employees coming to work with a smiling face and guests still leaving happy. And then we had to make the hard decision of maybe it's not the best decision for this week.
Yeah.
Right. As the virus continued to spread, that things got harder and sadder and more unsafe, and suddenly bringing 1,000 people to your restaurant every day, and the chaos of delivering that many meals safely, I think that became the wrong priority.
Not worth it.
10 days before it was forward thinking, and then 10 days later it was backwards thinking.
And Chase, if there's a lesson in this, everyone's like, oh, you guys are so prescient, be ahead of your time. No, we came up with an idea that worked for a week.
Yeah.
And then we had to have the guts to come up with another idea. And I think that is, that's the lesson here. It isn't that, you figure something out and you can see 10 miles down the road. You can't right now. You don't have a searchlight. You don't have your high beams on. You got like a lamp, and you can see a few feet down the road. That's enough to take a couple of steps. And as a team, we have just been asking ourselves the question nonstop. Okay, if I can't figure out the future, let me just figure out the next couple of steps, right? And so that we did a drive-through. 10 days later, we shut it down, which later in life, maybe we'll do a drive-through again, because that was a ton of fun.
Well, we still have so many cars come every day.
Yeah.
For burgers.
Yeah. Well, I know that's on my route home from CreativeLIVE, so I saw the traffic jam every day and was excited for you.
Pastry chef makes like ridiculous desserts, right? But the ice cream sandwich might forever be seared in my mind as like one of the happy moments of the last year for me. It was just, it was good. So, and so were the burgers. Brady makes a good burger. We've taken all the dry aged meat we had and grinding it up and making a burger out of it. So it was fun.
I mean, that had to be, Mark, I love Randy and Shake Shack, but I think Brady's burger was the best burger I've ever had.
It was
that also helped.
Damn good. It was really good.
I'll confess my favorite is to just have something arrive from the kitchen, and whether it's a burger or I've had a couple of pieces of meat that are just remarkable, that just show up. And so the fact that he could be in the back there and whip up a burger does not surprise me one bit. But I want to just recapture, to do two things. First, welcome people who have just joined us from all over the world. I'm Chase Jarvis, the founder and CEO of CreativeLIVE, and I'm sitting here with my dear friends, two gents, the Canlis brothers, Mark and Brian, and the chef at Canlis. They're the proprietors, and then the chef at Canlis, Brady Williams, James Beard, best new chef. And we're talking about how to reinvent your business on the fly. And we're doing this through the lens of a restaurant, but everyone out there listening knows that what we're really talking about is through all of the creators and the entrepreneurs, who your world's shifting under your feet in real time. This isn't about food. This is about reinvention. It's about following your heart, your mind, and where the market is going. And what we've heard, just a quick summary, that especially just in the last, I'd say 3 to 5 minutes, where it's not about seeing the whole staircase. It's about seeing the next stair. And if you usually in a normal economy can have your high beams on, you can see all the way down the road. Right now, what you might have is a candle, and you feel like you're in the dark. And this 70-year-old restaurant has pivoted 3 times in the last week. Each one arguably finding success, but maybe creating downstream problems. And I think Brady said it really, really well also earlier, which is, hey, we solved the problem. We were ahead of our time and created one opportunity for ourselves. And then 10 days later, we were not out of fashion in the sense of like not trendy, because the line was so long. You had, serving 1,000 burgers through your, people driving by your restaurant. But that actually then created potentially a health risk, or wait a minute, we don't want to get all these people together. And as Mark said, we're creating a traffic jam in the neighborhood, and that's not kind to our neighbors. So just a reminder that there's, constant reinvention. I want to go to Brady and say, as someone who has established a relationship with the food world as, again, best new chef in a fine dining universe. Is there are you all practicality, and at the end you want to be making things that people want and need, or is there some blow to the ego or to the mindset or the story that you've told yourself about who you are as a chef, to pivot to a burger and ice cream sandwiches, or to now delivery into people's homes across the city of Seattle and the region? Tell us a little bit about what's in the mind of the artist and how you've adapted.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, like, I started cooking because I love feeding people, and we love caring for people, and there's no ego in that. Now, of course, like when you're doing things at a certain level, you want to express yourself, maybe in a certain way or with a certain aesthetic or style. But I think it was important, and this was just we were kind of deciding what was best for everyone. I mean, we just wanted to care for people during this time, and so I love cooking casually, which is like what we're doing now. Is hard. It's cooking simply is hard, and we can still we can create a great product by using the same great ingredients that we are to run this fine dining restaurant, the same level of care and love and technique that goes into our tasting menu as we do meatballs for 1,000 people like we did last night. So at the end of the day, I want to and pour myself into whatever it is that we create. And so for me, the pivot was fairly easy. There was no pushback. I'm excited to do. I'm really loving cooking pozole and cooking duck cassoulet and doing all these things that honestly I don't get to do day in and day out. Like the whole delivery thing kind of started was like, I mean, Brian, as he said, like had a baby, and I've signed up to like meal trains before, right? And so when you cook for something like that's like scaled out, and you're cooking for a family in their home, like you don't do, Dungeness crab egg custards like you do comfort food. You do the food that people want to eat and enjoy night in and night out. So
love it. I came into the kitchen, Brady, was that last night or 2 nights ago? And there was just, I can't remember. It was like, you guys are producing such a vast quantity of food, right? And I said something to the effect of, remember when we used to run a fine dining restaurant? Like I was just overwhelmed at like the difference in, and you said, what do you mean? This is fine dining. And it was such a proper correction because, maybe it doesn't look like the white tablecloths and the tweezers and the precision but the amount of care that's going into the cooking, the ingredients that are going into it, the amount of consideration that is going into making a meal here and getting it to someone's home out those windows. We often say that fine dining is just the most considered form of dining and the most considered way to care for someone with food. And I don't think our consideration has dropped any. I don't think Brady's consideration has dropped any. And I think it's a testament to who he is, to how he runs a kitchen. And Chase, you have to try the duck cassoulet. It's so good. So maybe it's not fancy.
Oh man, I love me some comfort food though.
And so in a certain way, I think Canlis is doing what it's always done. Maybe this is, somebody said to me earlier in an interview, like, is it really hard to be a different Canlis? And I said, I don't think it is different. I think in many ways, I think we are more us in this time than ever. And look, we got a weird mission statement. It's to inspire people to turn toward one another. That's been the mission of this company for a long time. And when you look around the world right now and you see the physical turning away from, the distancing, the fear of one another, but that distance is good, but the turning away from is not. And I think if we can, in some way, continue to serve people, in some way continue to inspire people, to remind them they are not alone, to remind them that maybe tonight they are around the family table in a way that, let's be honest, this country desperately needed a few months ago before Corona. So there is a role to play here reminding ourselves the truth about what's going on. And if we can do that with a meal, aren't we privileged to do so? That's a special thing. And I think in so many ways we feel like we're doing exactly what we used to do. Maybe it just looks different.
Well, a thing that's really important to remind viewers and ourselves is that this is about values, right? And for the entrepreneur, the creator, there's you've put a stake in the ground of who we are, what we stand for. You said earlier, right when we got started, this is about being agile and nimble. Those are our values that we wanted to instill in ourselves and one another and our staff. And so it's not necessarily how you show up. I think it's that you show up. And, for the folks at home, again, our audience, as you all know, is just millions of creators and entrepreneurs all over the world for whom this has just been a sledgehammer into the middle of their world. And so this idea of holding on to the values and being able to stay nimble and being able to evolve and to be able to supply a service, some inspiration to make people smile, to still create, and, go back to what Brady said, like, it doesn't matter if I'm, cooking duck cassoulet or ice cream sandwich or, Côte de Boeuf. It's like, it's just that you show up and you do it in your own individual way. I think that is a great reminder for all of us. Again, regardless of the what industry you're operating in. I think I heard Brady chime in there. What were you saying, bud?
Oh, I just said, or tweezer food.
Yeah, Brady, show him your shirt.
This is funny. The minute we announced this, somebody tweeted back at us like, "Oh, great." What did he say? Like, "Oh, great. Now Canlis is..."
You gotta go a little higher.
Go, and I was like, "Yeah, you definitely can." Like,
yeah, let me see that shirt. Let me see that. I didn't catch it. Nice.
It says, "Delivering lukewarm tweezer food since 2020."
The whole kitchen's wearing them. It's like their favorite shirt now, and I think that. It's interesting. This is a time for creativity.
Yeah.
This is a time to create. And it's what we do as a civilization. I think that when there is hardship, it binds us together.
Yeah.
And under stress, under duress, we see these things happen. We see metals be refined under the heat, right? And I think even though Seattle maybe got knocked back on its heels a little bit, like it had the wind, knocked out of it. Yeah, we got it first. We weren't prepared. Sure, that is our story. And I think also our story is our second response. And if our first one was slow and a little bit devastated, our second one has been creative and beautiful and resilient and scrappy and pioneering. And that isn't a story just about this town. I think it's a story about this country in so many ways. So this is a time for that. And it's going to take that. It's going to take that and out of every one of us. I think you're right, Chase. It's about showing up. And I remind myself all the time, like, I can't fix this, right? I think we all have this massive burden on our hearts right now. Like, oh, wow, overwhelmed by what we see and hear. But nobody died mid me, King, and I sure as hell ain't God. So, like, it's not my role to fix it. It's my role to look to the person on my right and my left and to say, hey, are you good? Because we got this. And I think saying that out loud is something that has remarkable power. And whether you're saying it to someone 6 feet away, or whether you're shouting it across the street at your neighbor, or whether you're saying it with your eyes through the window of someone while you're marshaling traffic in the city streets, we have to say it. We have to remind that one to another that we can do this. And it doesn't always feel that way. I get that.
Yeah.
It hasn't always felt like
I think
in the restaurant.
I think we should also apologize for the terrible grammar on our hashtag. We were sitting around the table and we actually wrote this email to all the all the guests that we were canceling
Like 2
their
in the morning.
reservations.
Yeah.
Like Mark wrote this beautiful email and like, guys, we have to close the restaurant, but we're opening the drive-through, and
So hard,
like we're and then at the very bottom he says,
no, Jessica's like, no one's ever going to read that. Like you got to shorten it. She's like, that's lovely.
Well,
and
yeah.
all.
And so
no one will ever read that.
And you said, no, but you said, we've got this, Seattle.
Yeah.
It was nice. And then we were about to tweet it or Instagram or whatever, and we needed a hashtag. And so I looked at your letter and I just said, well, let's do hashtag we've got this Seattle, but it looks so weird with the proper grammar. And so Mark says, let's just do, we got this. And we didn't think it was a thing.
Drop the apostrophe VE. It doesn't make sense. We got this.
Yeah. And so if you fast forward to today, hashtag we got this Seattle is flying on top of the Space Needle, which is awesome and so fun that this thing caught fire, and so fun to talk about the spirit of this city. Though it is kind of funny. We did get a lot of people saying, are you referring to the fact that you have the virus now? Is that what you have?
Oh,
Seattle?
come on.
Tundra is effective.
Come on.
Yeah. We thought the Seattle also would have worked, but I don't think we were at that time.
No.
You got to ask yourself the question, like, it touched a nerve. Like, what nerve did it touch? Like, why did we all need to hear that at that time? And it was emotional for us to write it. It was emotional for us to sort of say it out loud, to say it to our team, and to make a public statement, I don't know, on a website. But it worked for us. And I think as we as a city sort of picked ourselves up a little bit from the initial blow of it, I think that encouraging word was just healthy to the bones of this town, and it was just uplifting and a reminder of another truth. I mean, yes, the one truth is that this is hard, this is bad. It's as bad as most of us have ever seen, unless you go to. I've been receiving a lot of encouragement and wisdom from the elderly right now, who seem to be twice as courageous as anyone in my age group, 30s and 40s. I don't know. You talk to someone in their 70s and 80s, and they've seen it. They've seen things. Maybe it wasn't a pandemic of corona, but they have been through suffering. They've been through brokenness. They've seen. They've seen more than we have, and they are wiser than we are. And I take encouragement from them. And so I think that there are two truths. This is hard, and also we can do this.
Yeah, those things can be true at the same time. I think that's a really, really important thing to remember. And you said it eloquently. Again, shouting out, I'm seeing some comments from Scott, the Seattle Food Geek, asking a question that I wanted to ask you because it's a good one, and I'd like to hear from each of you in a 3-sentence maximum answer. We're going to play a little game here. Scott writes, do you think the new model is something that other restaurants are capable of copying, or does it require something that is scarce, like resources, space, or some special leadership? So each of the three of you, I'd love to hear from Brian first.
Ooh.
Is what you're doing replicable?
It can't be copied. We're using the assets that we have that are unique to us.
Brilliant.
But I think every restaurant can be creative and use whatever assets are unique to them. Is that 2 sentences? 3?
Yes, it was effective. Well done.
Yeah, I think it's a mindset.
Now you're going into 4 sentences. You're stealing time.
Sorry, I'll stop. Oh, but here's my 5th sentence. It's actually, I need to give credit. Scott Heimendinger is the guy who gave us the idea for Piano Livestream. Which is now becoming a big thing. And it was Scott's idea, so thanks, Scott.
Well, we're excited to broadcast that a little later tonight. I think we're going to go there at 7 p.m. to join you all for the piano broadcast. Brady, do you think the new model is something that it says restaurants, but I think other creators and entrepreneurs are capable of replicating?
Well, I agree with Brian, so to not be redundant. I think what we're doing is unique to who we are and what we have, the resources that we have. But I talked to a lot of chefs and restaurateurs when we first announced this thing, and I told them, I was like, look, what we're doing won't work for you, but just do. It was mostly I was talking to other cities who had not yet kind of been hit by the pandemic or the virus that really like hit their cities to the extent as it did here. So I was just like, hey, do the work up front, like do the thinking. It's a lot of all of our, I think our hardest work has been the thinking work and the work around the table. Cooking food is easy, like in a way, like, but anyone can take the time to think through scenarios and be creative, and figure out what could work for them, to sustain as long as possible.
Love it. And let's go back to you, Mark.
I think it's such a good question. That's one sentence. What we're doing is our story. And I think everybody has the ability to create their own story right now. So this is absolutely beatable. This is not unique.
And the question really is then, what will your story be, right?
Yeah, what's repeatable is to sit around a room and to say, what can we do? And it's not going to look like a drive-through. And if you don't own a restaurant, it's not going to look like delivery. But I think we should sit in every one of those rooms. Just have the courage to ask the question. This is a time for courage and a time for a little crazy. I mean, look, a lot of people said, what you guys are doing is nuts. It's full on crazy. And we're like, yep.
Well, I want to, you've used up your 3 sentences, bud. I love it. That's why I wanted to play that game. But let's shift gears for a second, because I remember when, I don't know, I think I was talking to Brian about your live streaming piano setup, and we figured that this is a thing that we needed to do to have you guys on CreativeLIVE to talk about your adaptations. And I remember hearing that from you, Brian, that a lot of people were in your restaurant world were writing in and asking questions, and a lot of your entrepreneurial friends were writing in with questions. And I mean, I'm more than willing to actually answer some of those questions, or give you guys the space to answer those questions, so we can direct folks to this broadcast, and you don't have to answer all the emails. But if in the absence of you as having those questions at your fingertips or your computer in front of you, what were some of the chief questions that you were getting from your creator / chef / restaurateur entrepreneur friends?
A few of them were just logistical. Insurance. Is it legal to have your servers deliver meals as far as your insurance policy? Because we were trying to figure out, it's pretty easy to keep the kitchen employed because they're making food. And I don't think we ever finished that conversation thread, but we closed the drive-through, but now we're doing about 1,000 meals a night in delivery, and we're doing cocktails by delivery, and we're doing this piano thing, and we're doing wine delivery. And so we're still very busy, and it's easy to keep the kitchen employed. It's less easy to keep the dining room employed. And so we made them all drivers. And so, yeah, there's actually, they're working on legislation that allows drivers personal insurance. Normally there's a clause that says they can't be delivery drivers on their personal insurance, but there's a COVID-19 way around that clause if you call your insurance company. They can also go on your own commercial insurance. As long as you've already insured at least one vehicle. We actually own this green truck. And because we already insured one vehicle, it was easy to add on the other vehicles. But it's just a matter of getting on the phone with your insurance company and working it out. People are trying to help. There's questions about what is the software to pull off delivery and takeout. And that was a great question because there wasn't any. In fact, the reservation system that we use is called Talk. It's done by a guy named Nick Kokonis in Chicago. And we actually called them because they're one of the most agile and quick and smart software companies out there. And we said, hey, we're going to go to do takeout and delivery. Can you help? We've figured out a way to kind of patchwork our dining room version of the software to kind of work. And he said, okay, that sounds cool, but our entire office is at home. We've shut down for a while. I don't think we can pull this off before you guys launch. And then he calls back a half hour later and says, we are so excited. This is the best idea. We're bringing our entire team in. We're going to work 24 hours a day around the clock and launch this thing.
4 days. And they did it in 3. It's pretty awesome.
It was awesome. And so now that software is available to any restaurant in this country, and it's smart and intuitive, and I don't think they're even charging for it. It gives people the tools to put this together. And then another piece of software that we just started with that is blowing our minds is called Routerific, and they're helping also they're giving discounts to restaurants. Routerific is this genius software that you take a spreadsheet that Talk gives you of all your orders, and you put it into Routerific, and you tell Routerific how many drivers you have, and then it prints out perfect instructions for each driver in the most efficient way to deliver the meals in the hottest way and at what time.
Also puts the directions on their phone. Also allows you. I mean, I delivered a meal last night. You just text like, "Hey, this is Mark Canlos. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Warm up the oven. We're right around the corner." With those 2 pieces of software, any restaurant could do delivery pretty easily.
Let's recap those, because I don't even know what Brad was saying. Routerific, is that what it is? ROUTERIFFIC?
Yes.
Talk is TOCK.
Here we go.
I think it's exploretalk.com. Those are the 2 pieces that you need. And I think the third unsung piece that is one of the reasons that we've been so successful. We're one of the few restaurants that keep an artist on retainer. We have a guy named Don Clark who works for his own firm called Invisible Creature. We have a guy named Jeremy Beasley who's also an artist and designer who does web stuff for us. And to have 2 artists on your team who can make what you're doing beautiful and make it look like you have your shit together, even if you don't. We were chaotic over here, but we were delivering to the public this beautiful put together.
It's not essential.
Helps a lot to employ creatives to turn our businessy, crazy concepts into something that the public can look at and say, I can trust that. And so we had a brand new website launched within 24 hours because of Jeremy. We had all brand new art because of Dawn and Invisible Creature. Like, those types of things are what give the public the confidence of, oh, these guys know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important. I think a lot of restaurants don't invest in art and in design. They think that the other things are more important, and we firmly believe they are not.
No, that's a great point. And I think there's a
shout out to the creatives.
No, it's great. And I think it's also a shout out to investing. I think there's always a desire to maximize there's often rather a desire to maximize what you're extracting from your business, either as a creator or an entrepreneur. And I'm reminded of, the financial crash of 2007, 8, 9. And I had been investing and had a rainy day fund because I didn't feel the need to live above my needs, and I wanted to invest, and that investment really paid off in that time. when everyone else was requiring to extract the maximum value, as in like dollars from their business, so they could, maintain a continuity to their life. So I think there's an underscored theme, not just about investing in creativity, but about investing in your business and yourself, such that, what is the smallest amount of money you feel like you can take off the table, even in times where business is booming, so that in a downturn or if an opportunity presents itself, to be in a better position to succeed.
And I think, Chase, there's room there such that profitability is not the most important thing for a company, right? So to your point, to try to maximize that is, we believe, a terrible strategy for any business.
Yeah.
Granted, we're not a publicly traded company, so we have a little more freedom and leeway there. But for Canlis, profitability is a rule to the game. It's not a strategy. The rule just says you need to make a certain amount of money, otherwise someone else takes your restaurant, right? So it's very specifically moved that out of the equation, so that we could focus on the things that I think really matter, and those are people. To be quite honest, those are the people around us. So,
love it. I know.
Just real quick, I just got a text from Jeremy who's watching. It's routific, not routerific. Just routific.
Maybe routerific should be their new tag. Routific. It's like routific. We could make a little jingle out of that.
It's like Roto-Rooter, but for drivers.
Oh, I think it's fantastic to share some of the little micro innovations that are happening in real time, and in a weird world, and in a way that maybe is different than, because we're no longer business as usual. There's an opportunity to discover solutions. Most of the problems that we're trying to solve here have been solved just with a slightly different context, and there's lots of examples. I mean, again, we've been building CreativeLIVE for 10 years, and who knew that a live broadcast platform, even after making thousands and thousands of live broadcasts and classes, was going to, just like the live aspect again, was going to, help not just teach, but entertain and inspire. So we're trying to look at, I think, so many of these answers are right under your nose. And this idea of the solution being right under your nose does make me want to go back to Chef and say, when you're looking at the, we basically have been talking over the last 5 minutes about the ingredients. I think Brian started off with do what you can with what you have. And I'm wondering, from Chef Brady's perspective, is there are you limited on what you can receive right now as far as food shipments and from where you can get them?
No, I mean, we're not limited. Our purveyors are definitely affected in the same way. As restaurants close, there's less of a need for ingredients, right? So, yeah. On the contrary, one of the things that we've kind of we've done is we've designed our menus around, as well as we came up with the idea of doing a CSA box, which is a box full of protein and produce from our favorite farmers. We've built our menus around what our purveyors' needs are. So I've spent the last 5 years here developing relationships with a lot of farmers and artisans and producers who are also affected by this. I mean, there's no farmers markets anymore, right? So if anything, it's just for me, it's now a conversation of, hey, what do you have a surplus of? What do you need to move? And let us help you and support you by designing a menu or a package around that. So we're not feeling necessarily limitations in terms of products to cook with, or produce.
All the food's still out there.
However,
grown up.
I think that if anything, it's been the one thing is it's really hard to get to-go packaging because everyone is doing takeout and to-go. So we've had to be probably most adaptable with what our delivery meals go in on any given night, because every restaurant's now a to-go restaurant, and there weren't there wasn't an endless supply of to-go packaging.
Yeah, serve everything in a milkshake format here pretty soon, right? It's like, that's what we're going to be left with if everyone.
Chase, we have had to change the way we receive. So in that sense, we don't allow anyone outside the restaurant in. We don't even allow our drivers into the restaurant. We receive everything out by the front door now, just because that's our crew. We know what's going on. We can do it in an orderly way, and we're bringing in more food than ever. So I do think a lot of your systems, it's not like you could just run the restaurant the way you used to run the restaurant. Everything is different now. And so we're thinking through a lot of those systems daily as like, okay, well, wait a minute. We should do this differently and we should do that differently. So now when you pull up at the restaurant, you just see all these boxes. And we've got, and those aren't kitchen folks, by the way, those are dining room. That allows us to employ more of the dining room. So they're out there signing for deliveries and writing checks and bringing everything in. And it's just a lot of things need to be reconsidered.
I love it. So I think it's interesting now to shift gears and go beyond just the logistics. And, we opened with some of the just challenges that you all are facing and that are facing creators and entrepreneurs everywhere. And now that you're up and running, and I use that term with air quotes maybe, up and running, as your third restaurant iteration here in as many weeks, you're clearly shifting gears to be able to bring in some aspects of surprise and delight. I know I was talking to your brother about Dungeness crab delivery, and we've been speaking about the piano live stream that we're going to be bringing you a little bit later this evening. And is that something that you have prioritized, or was there a strategy that we needed to get all of our infrastructure in place? And are you now at the place where you feel like you've got something that's sustainable and you're looking for ways to surprise and delight? Because I know as a creator of experiences, as an artist and an entrepreneur, that those are the things that, you might get someone the first time, but the things that keep them coming back are these just beautiful little touches. And you guys are so well known for that. Are you now in a place to do that? And how important has that been, as we're talking to a global audience of creators who are trying to prioritize?
As a company who spent 70 years trying to get really good at that, we take some relief in knowing that is not as important right now. And so we could push this thing harder, and yes, we could make the boxes that we're sending to people. We're using a rubber stamp, for crying out loud, right? So I just don't think it's as important right now. And I think the safety of our staff is paramount. The thing that is most on my mind is how do we operate in and through this building? The earlier question that says, is this a function of space? Yes, in part. We have a large restaurant. We have a massive parking lot. We're using every square inch of the entire property in order to space everything out. Maybe because we've been changing every 7 days, we haven't had the luxury to get there. I would love to get back into that. I think it's fun and important. Maybe because of the ideas themselves come with some inherent amount of surprise and delight. To have a piano, you pull out your box and there's all the food, and then there's on the bottom of your menu it says, go to this live stream, and the piano will be playing in the background. I don't want to, it's not that it's unimportant, it's just not the priority that it used to be. I think safety right now is the priority. I think even those of us that are in essential businesses have a heightened, or I might even say extreme responsibility to do everything we possibly can to fight the war against this thing spreading. And so we take that really seriously. And you can't do it all at once. So yes, next week I understand we're putting flowers from a farmer who has a zillion tulips. There are opportunities, but it's not a priority. We're going to be looking for that as this thing wanes on. I think it'll become more important. But right now, it's about getting your feet underneath you, doing it in a safe manner, and taking care of yourselves. we're prioritizing the way that we rest and sleep and restore ourselves as a staff. That's of critical importance right now. And so kind of backing off some of the other things that normally a company like ours would be leaning heavily into.
I think that's a great perspective, and it really helps frame the conversation, because what I having hosted this show for 10 years now, more than 10 years, I think 11, there's a really consistent theme across, I think, not just our community, but across humanity around, like, other people have it figured out and I don't. And so I think when someone, looks at the work that you all are doing and how you've innovated, and the fact that someone wants to come to your front door to pick up 1,000 hamburgers, that is a luxury. And, but the reality is that, you've been building that community for 70 years. And so,
long time.
Yeah. And so,
but also I would want people to hear we don't have it figured out. I mean, I joke about this. Brian and I have been running this restaurant for, of those 70, I don't know what we're responsible for now, 17. And we say all the time, we feel like we're just getting the hang of it. And we don't have it figured out. And I wouldn't want someone to think that about us. I think we're good at figuring it out. Those are very different things. So to me, there's so much uncertainty in a 70-year-old company. There's so much uncertainty in the way we're going to operate. If there's anything that is a hallmark of this team, it's that we run into something and then we figure it out. I don't mean to put the image out there that we have the answers. We don't have the answers.
No, it's important. Sorry, go ahead, Brian, what were you saying?
I was just saying, I was thinking earlier to Scott's question, can any restaurant do this? I do believe one of the things that makes Kinless unique and strong and able to do this is we only have one restaurant. We have so much talent packed into this one building because we haven't expanded. If we were to open another restaurant tomorrow, we'd send half of our best people there. And then you open another one and you keep spreading your talent, and it's hard. Here we have everyone in one spot. So I think it'd be very difficult for restaurants that are one of a large group to be able to make, because I think there's a smaller concentration of and longevity of people. I mean, this team's been working together for a long time. There are a lot of strengths to growing. I think that is one of the weaknesses.
Yeah. No, it's great.
Sure.
Yeah. In a different economy, the weakness of Canlis is that we just don't grow the same way. But in this economy, that weakness becomes a strength, where we have mustered all of our forces tight. We're very lethal. We're very lean. We're very agile. And we have the ability to sort of move in the direction that we need to very quickly. And this way, I think small business will have an advantage, which great. They could use all the advantage they can get right now. But they have the ability to make the courageous moves, to make the courageous change. They also have, typically, I'm generalizing right now, but they also have the personal reach from a leadership standpoint. And don't underestimate that. This idea that we have been working together for a long time and trust one another implicitly is a currency right now that cannot be over-esteemed or valued too highly. And so, in general, the smaller the company or the more sort of homespun it is, and this is a pretty homespun spot, the more family run it is, the more you're going to be able to go quicker with your people, because you have the foundation of relationship built up, and that makes us effective.
I think there's wisdom in those statements for sure. I want to go back to Chef for a sec. I don't know.
I'm gonna have to come up here right after.
I figured. I'm looking at our timeline here, and I know we agreed you'd have to balance. Is there anything behind the scenes that you feel comfortable showing us? I know you're sitting in your dry goods room.
Yeah, like the kitchen's just in kitchen mode. There's nothing there that would be more like remarkably different than like a normal operation right now, except
Everyone's 6 to 10 feet away from each other.
Yeah, everything's 6 feet away, and luckily we have a private dining kitchen, so we're doing like prep pretty spread out. But I mean, like, this is just behind me is like all of our to-go stuff. This is just back stock. And I'm sitting like right next to the bar in the restaurant. So this is typically 6 tables, 7 tables of guests.
Oh, so you're on the floor right now. Can you hit unblur your screen so we can see those boxes?
I don't know
how to do that. I think it's the default, but yeah. It's
staring at like, in like the part of the restaurant by the windows, which overlooks the city, is all probably like 2,000 to-go boxes.
Wow.
Jammed, ready to go. So
Yeah,
my favorite table. My favorite table is right around the corner to your left there.
Yeah, your favorite table is right here, which is the bar.
Yes.
Which is a roped off area where they're doing cocktail kits.
Wow.
To go.
It's cool, Chase. You wouldn't recognize the dining room. Every area of it is a different type of either the place where we do the stamping of the boxes, or building boxes, or constructing kit. Like everything is.
It's out.
It's a manufacturing plant.
Blurred the background. So.
There you go. Nice moves.
But,
there.
Text out.
And there's the bar. Yep, I see that. There's my table.
Yeah,
right
so the bar team is not allowed
screen.
out of the bar, and no one who's not on the bar team is allowed into the bar, so we can keep them separate.
Oh wow. Well, again, I don't know. I know chef's got to bounce, so I want to respect that time and say thanks for joining us, Brady. I know I'm going to try and get my hands on. I was negotiating with with Brian earlier about trying to get my hands on some Dungeness crab, but
you owe me an email back. We've got the box ready for you.
I know.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Keep doing what you're doing, and if those of you on the internet, what's the best way to track your social handle there, Brady? Where are you at so that people know how to find you?
Through the restaurant, Canlis Restaurant on Instagram. Williams Brady, last name, first name on Instagram. That's all I got.
Awesome. No, that's fantastic. Thanks again for joining us, and appreciate you being a part of the broadcast.
Thank you.
Okay, bud. So let's go back. Now, I made a couple of notes earlier. I wanted to shift gears because, as you said, Brian, you are a proud new father of your third child, and right now there are lots of people listening from all over the world who are parents, and having a newborn as fresh as yours is, like, how are you doing it? I think there's a lot of we have a need for a lot of empathy in this time where people are working from home and have young ones, or in your case, a newborn. How are you managing it?
Well, the short answer is I'm not. Meaning my wife is on newborn duty.
Yeah, I guess I'm saying it's really you and your family, because I know your wife.
Well,
she's a superhero.
What we've done actually is so I have a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and now a 1-month-old. And I kind of have the 2 and the 4-year-old, and she has the infant. And we feel we're both single parents of these 2 different families. And it's hard. I tell you, the thing that makes it doable is having a brother who is a business partner who has your back. So even now I'm only back part-time. I'm working about 5 or 6 hours a day.
3 or 4.
Mark is working double that.
3 and 4.
And so it's awesome to be able to be a part. I'm working the least amount of hours out of any manager in this company, and that is a gift from my company to my wife and I. And it's probably the biggest gift from Mark, because most of that burden falls on him. And it's hard. I tell you, I feel like both home and the restaurant have their own form of like of crisis. I mean, having 3 kids that are tiny feels like a crisis every day, and the restaurant is. And I think the key is being able to completely detach from one and pour, but you can't hold both at the same time.
Yeah, fair.
When I go home, I need to be a dad and let all of it go. And you can do that if you have a business partner and a brother and a chef and a team that just can do it. And then when I'm at the restaurant, I have the most amazing wife. We have this incredible nanny that watches the 2 toddlers for the 5 hours that I'm here, and I can let my family go. It's a little bit of a whiplash every day. Your neck hurts, but you have to be able to be completely present, which is something I wrestle with, but I'm getting better at, no matter which piece of that world that I'm facing.
Eloquently spoken. I don't know, Mark, do you feel like that was my view of it? Yeah. Yeah. No, but I mean, like I witnessed your guys' relationship for, certainly at least 20 years now, right? Before you were running it and now having run the restaurant. And it seemed like there was always a give and take. And so do you look at this as a gift, or is it part of just being a good partner and showing up for your team? How do you view it?
No, I mean, clearly one of the secret weapons of this restaurant is the fact that there are 2 of us, and less secret is the fact that we're married to 2 really incredible women. And so I think if there's something, if you're listening right now, obviously you're like, yeah, good for you. I don't have a restaurant, and I don't have a brother, and maybe I don't have an incredible wife at home. I think the message here is all of us have a network that we lean on. And yeah, maybe we're on the one on screen, but you don't see the army, like behind this team. Yeah. And so, yeah, Brian's been otherwise occupied. And, I have, my wife has been taking care of our 3 kids at home, and behind her is her sister and her family and our parents. And, and I think that story is true. The more we look into the reality of our own lives, the more we realize how much we lean on the people around us, how much we are a product of them, of their love and of their support. And Canlis is that story. And so, yeah, Brian has been gone for a little bit. Having him back this last couple of weeks has been game changing for us. But the story of he and I, the story of this restaurant, whether it's Brady or whoever is leading this place, is the story of all the people behind us supporting us, who you just don't get to see. And we have been blessed with just a remarkable, starting probably with Mackenzie and with Anne Marie, with Brian and I's wives, just a remarkable team of folks. But there are people on every corner of this planet thinking about and praying for this place, and we'd be nuts not to highlight that. And I think that's just, whoever you are, I think that's just true about who we are as people. We're a product of the people we spend time with. And so Mom and Dad, who I'm sure are watching this right now, there's a lot of people who have given us so much in order to get to where we are today, delivering dinners.
Well, I think it's remarkable. If I can jump in for a second, I wrote a book in the fall, dropped it in September, called Creative Calling, and 25% of the book, a full quarter of it, is dedicated to community and building community. And I think for solopreneurs or those kitchen counter entrepreneurs or part-time entrepreneurs or any myriad of people who find themselves or have created a role for themselves where they're following their passion or getting a business off the ground, and you're looking at other folks, whether on Instagram or at the Small Business Association meetings or wherever you go, and there's this perception of success or of having a quote network, and it's really important. And I'm going to form this I'm going to turn this into a question here at the end. But the community is this sort of massively misunderstood aspect of, I could say, every, creator and entrepreneur, but it's fair to say every human being, because the facts are, the biology is that we are social animals. And as when things get hard, we often go inside and our self-talk changes. And then there's the perception that people who have a network, or in the case of Canlis, when you've been building your community for 70 years, that is probably one of the things that's making what you're doing possible, that's making 1,000 people line up outside your door for a burger. And so, this is certainly loaded, but, what role has community, not just your direct family, but, your outreach to other restaurateurs to become to be a member of the larger food and restaurant community, the wine community, service community, what role do you think that has played? Part one. And then part two, what I'd be wanting you to expand on is, how have you and the team at Canlis specifically cultivated community?
Brian, I'll take a stab at that. Those are big questions.
Me? This is your wheelhouse. You start.
All right. To the second question first. How do we cultivate community? Congratulations for getting your book out. Mine is 10 years in the making, and
that's what these dark circles under my eyes are from.
Still working on table of contents.
Still working on the table of contents. And maybe I'll just use that as the answer. There's a reason that book isn't written. Brian and I work in the restaurant. So we come here every day. We're deeply involved in the lives of our staff. And then we go home, we write this place off like it doesn't exist. And we're deeply involved in the lives of our children and of our friends and of our spouses. And I think right now, anyone's ability to be present with someone is directly related to your ability to have a community. And it's hard to be present. I get it. There's a lot of distracting things out there, but we prize presence over other things. And that starts with if you just draw a little concentric circle around this place, it starts with our own homes and our own families, and then it goes right to this building and to the 100 employees here, and then just slowly radiating out. I think, I don't know, that's the first answer that comes to mind. I haven't written a book because frankly, to disappear and just to write, it seems an impossibility when we're this involved in the restaurant and in the lives of these people. And so I understand that's just, we haven't made it a priority, but I think it gets told just how involved leadership actually is. Leadership is fancy speak for relationship. And we are, as you mentioned, social creatures, yes, but made for relationship. And so if we're to nurture that, if we're to engage in that, then so much of the work is right here, right? Like, if I want you to trust me, I have to be trustworthy. And I think all the relationships are based off of trust. And that's a full-time job, just right there. No books and no restaurants aside. That's all I can do. So I honestly think that it starts in here. It starts with a lot of self-work of saying, like, Zoolander, who am I? Who am I? What do I believe in? And what do I stand for? And am I worth following? Am I a good friend? Like, these are the questions. Am I a good spouse? Am I a good father? These are the questions we have to be asking with total honesty. And then it happens out from there. Yes, 70 years of a restaurant in this town has built a huge community, and that's why people an hour and a half to get a line for a silly burger, a really delicious and silly burger. But
no, I think that's. I want to interrupt you for a second, because I think that's a really important, point that we keep coming back to. Like, there's a line at your restaurant, but that doesn't happen on accident. It doesn't happen overnight. And for people who don't have that right now, I'm suggesting that this is a cue that you can take from, the people who are leaders that have been, whether you have been in business for 70 years or 7 months, that it needs to be a priority. The presence that you mentioned when you're with anyone, but also, like, I know you just talked about being, doing some work with the James Beard Foundation. Brian was in South Korea. You were, in New York. Brady was on his way to Tokyo. Like, this is what I mean about building community. You're reaching out to other people. Hey, can I come see how you do things? And it's active. It's not just passive. So can you talk to me about that?
You want me to take that one also, Brian? I'd love. What are you on paternity leave over there? I'm just, feel free to step in anytime here.
No, you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So, yeah. Let's see.
It's active. It's clearly active. You guys reach out to others. You have community. You participate in some of the dining awards. This is my point. Is this is not an accident that you're in this position. You have intentionally been building it.
Okay, Mark. I'll say something.
I was going to take it to the mission. I can't escape that. To me, from that point that everything. But go ahead.
Well, no, that's a good place to go. It's not just reaching out.
Adding value.
Everyone reaches out. Yeah, but Mark said it before. It's actually being present with the people who are already in your life or who you do reach out to. So we do this thing in orientation with our new staff, and some of those staff have been here, I don't know, 2 or 3 or 4 months by the time they get to orientation. And we do this thing where we tell stories. We tell a 4-minute life story, which seems like either a very long or a very short time, depending on who you're talking to. And around that table of people that you've already known for months, in only 4 minutes, you learn an extraordinary amount about a friend, a coworker, even my brother, who I've heard him do his story 1,000 times. I'm like, really? You keep hearing things because we never take the time to actually sit down, look at someone in the eyeballs, and really listen to who they are as people. And so in all of the stuff that we do, going to other restaurants or conferences or in our own relationships, our own family, we want to get to that place. And it's in that place where you get to know the other human on the other side of the eyes, where you build a community that creates the types of relationships that we're talking about.
I think that, like, when you're in the hospitality business, which I read 14 or 15% of our nation is 4% of GDP. So a lot of people think about this. I think you have to do the real work of trying to understand what hospitality is. And it is not a transaction. It has always been about relationship. So even when we go back to the beginning days of hospitality, when this is predating restaurants and hotels, right? These are people traveling from one place to another. And you have at the end of your day or at the end of your rope, whatever, you got to knock on some door. You're running out of food or water or safety or daylight. And that's where hospitality began. You knock on a door and you say, hey, I need help. I need you. I need a place to stay. I need a meal. It came out of a very vulnerable place. Saying I need is a scary thing to do. And the person at the door had incredible power. They are in their home. They're in their safest place. They're in their world. All of the food and all of the safety is available to them. So hospitality at its very roots is this exchange of power for the other, for the person who's in need, right? It was the ability to say to them, come in. It was the ability to make space for them. And that carving out of space, which I think of as a really generous act, that is where community comes from. That's where relationships come from. It's the garden out of which all relationships grow, really, is this idea that even though I wasn't expecting you, you knocked on my door. You were an inconvenience to me, but I saw your need. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to make that person's need my need. I'm going to make space for them. That's this whole business that we're talking about. This is why it's hard when you say, well, how does it exactly happen? Like, wow, we got to take it back 3,000 years, but here we go. Like, that's hospitality. It was the generous act of making space for someone else and letting them in, caring for them. And that's a message that we needed pre-corona. It's a message we'll need post-COVID-19. Like, it's a message about humanity. And I think right now it's an interesting time to be looking at that. Here we are sequestered and quarantined in our own homes. You know, here we are gathering around the table with our own people, with our own families. And here we are starting from scratch. Here we are saying it's a new reality. It's a new normal out there. And to be totally frank with you, the family table, America wrapped around their own table, cooking at home, is a great platform from which to prepare our country for a new normal. You know what I mean? So
I do, yeah.
It's kind of taking us back to those things. I think that's where hospitality comes from. I think that's the foundation of this restaurant. And from that point, you get to the place that Brian's talking about, where years later, in your own orientation, where the staff is supposed to be learning about Canlis, we've intentionally flipped that around. And we say, we're going to learn about you. And by the way, after that, Mom and Dad come in the restaurant. One of their sole roles anymore is to sit down with the new employees and to have dinner with them and to hear their story, to hear who they are as people and what makes them tick. And I don't know if that's what you're looking for, but
it's exactly
hard to get to the...
It's not. It's effort.
Cherry on top without going back to the roots of the thing.
But that's to me, it's crystal clear, and it's often left unsaid, and it's mysterious for most. Like, how did this happen? And it is, to me, your prescription was quite simple. It's like you literally need to hold space with the people that you're trying to connect with, and whether they're helping you or you're helping them, or you're trying to find the courage to ask for help. Or you're trying to be there to add value to someone else, like all of those things. That's
and think about it, Chase. Literally go back in time a little bit. That's not a comfortable conversation. I've had so many people say to me, "This is uncomfortable." Like, you're damn right it is. It's very uncomfortable because that traveler, I assure you, was not from your town, was not from your tribe. They did not look like you. They probably didn't believe the same things you believed. They were probably of a different race and a different religion. This is the other, the ultimate other, capital O, other, right? This is the person who is completely unlike you. That's who you're making space for.
Yeah.
So we think of hospitality as like drinking rosé on the back porch with our friends. That's hanging out on the back porch drinking rosé. That's not hospitality. Hospitality was this dangerously radical act of turning towards. So when people nowadays are like, oh, I'm feeling lonely, I'm like, maybe you need to find the person who is other than and make space for them. And if I'm totally honest with you, it's what I'm craving for those people to do for me. It's what I need.
Yeah.
Desperate for it. I think a lot of us do, or maybe all of us do. I don't know. But anyway, that's more than you wanted on hospitality. But that to me is where community comes from, is that it's ancient. We didn't make this stuff up.
Oh, I love it. Let's hear from your brother.
Yeah, how about that guy? Seriously, how's it going up there?
Over here in fatherhood. You built the slide deck.
You got a coffee?
My wife.
I don't have any coffee over here.
My wife just texted. Hold on, does this work?
Oh yeah, yeah, there he is. Hey, Shepard. Hey, buddy.
Shepard. Watch this on the live stream.
Photo, or is he live?
That's just a photo.
Oh, okay. I kept waiting for him to move. That's what you got on your brain right now.
That's what I got on my brain.
What would Mackenzie say about hospitality? We should loop her.
Man.
What would she say about it? I think you guys have done an incredible job. I mean, even just in the way that, the way you've navigated this thing, the way you've had a baby, and the way that you have engaged the restaurant and also engaged the family.
This is, to pick up the thread, Brian, we're talking about the intentionality behind building a community, that if you're not actively reaching out, and Mark took it back to, like, that's in the roots of the hospitality, not just industry, but in our humanity, is in sort of connecting with someone outside yourself, and that is a active process. And, I was positing that you guys have been actively doing that for 70 years, which is one of the reasons that you can, create success in a super dynamic and changing. It's not the only factor, but it's certainly that people are willing to follow you, that you've been leading and you've been adding value to the community for decades. So maybe you can riff on that for a second, because I think it's an often misunderstood.
Yeah, I think we also haven't talked about the fact that there's the task is the wrong word, the opportunity, when 150 to 200 people come into your dining room every night. I mean, that's an unreal, we're in a weird business where you get to meet 200 new people every single night who are actually showing up at our front door in a good mood. It's what's awesome about the restaurant business is they've come here for good reasons. Everyone's happy on the way in, and most of the time happy on the way out. So the other challenge you face in our business when it comes to hospitality is, what does it look like to do what Mark's talking about at a dining room table in a 2.5 hour experience? Because it's so common, and people have felt this in other restaurants, and maybe sometimes in ours when we're not at our best. When the hospitality is transactional and it's just, our least favorite question a server ever asks the table is, how are we doing today? And I'm like, are you a part of this? And when people talk to you like you're not an actual human, and so what does it look like to be present with real people,
like
with actual,
we're not
actual strangers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's hard. It's not easy to do, and it'd be really good for everyone to know that we fail at it routinely. Not only that, we fail at it with our own staff routinely. And so this isn't something that we've accomplished. This is aspirational. This is something that we hope for ourselves. And I think when we describe the values of Canlis, which are trustworthy and generous and other-centered, that's not off my resume. That's off of my epitaph, my tombstone. I'm hoping somebody writes that about me. I'm hoping that because we're greeting 200 guests a night, and there's the crucible of having to ask the question, what does it look like to be authentic and to open up to these people? I'm hoping that having done that, I'll become someone who is trustworthy. I'll become someone who learns how to be generous. And generosity, by the way, is not a financial term. We're not talking about money here. I think every person on the planet has the exact same capacity for generosity. We're talking about the ability to incline your heart to turn towards somebody and make space for them. That's all we're talking about. So it's it's a weird business to be in, because you kind of have to get. But
it gets really fun when you start applying it to a business model. And in this case, it's a restaurant. So when you apply it to valet, everyone talks about our valet drivers, and if you don't know, we don't use tickets. And, we do 100 cars a night sometimes. And so how do you remember
waiting for you
car without
super cool?
Yeah. And so when you get up from the table, your car's there waiting for you, and there was never a ticket. And we do the same thing with coats. We take your coat and we say thanks, and we never give you a ticket. And people, when they learn the secret behind this system, and they think there's video cameras or software, or there's not, there's just the desire to have this, to not turn you into a number. If you care enough to not turn, so like if Obama came and pulled up in whatever car he's driving, a regular valet at a regular restaurant wouldn't give him a number because they would just remember because he's important enough to remember. But when the next guy comes and you give him a number, you're automatically saying, well, I care about this person. They matter enough, but you, I don't. And so when you decide as a company to say, okay, everyone matters enough to not turn anyone into a number.
To remember. It's a really powerful thing.
Yeah.
To say, you matter enough for me to remember you. Dad, I when I was learning how to run the front desk, Brandon, did he ever say this to you? I was like, yeah, well, Dad, I'm not very good at names. He's like, well, who's coming in next? I was like, well, I don't know. I'm not very good at names. He's like, you're not good at names because you don't care about the people. Okay, well, like when your father says that to you and he's training you how to, that hurts. Like, that's rough, right?
Yeah.
He's like, I'll pay you $1 million to remember the next couple's name. And you're kind of like, really? He's like, well, yeah. See, now you're motivated. Now you care, don't you? Right? Like, you didn't have $1 million, but his point was well taken, which was, if you care enough, you'll remember. And the valets, nobody cares more in the world than remembering your car than one of our valets. And I think it's just a beautiful picture or illustration of the power of another person mattering to you that much.
And it has to matter. No one comes to Canlis because they're hungry. I mean, they come because tonight matters for some reason. They come because tonight is special, and it has to be honored. And so they're giving you, they are trusting you with this thing that matters to them so much. And so if you don't hold that thing that they're giving you, maybe it's their daughter's 13th birthday, like that happens once, or the first date after having a baby, or it's you and Kate coming after, like, you guys had the worst day ever. And I remember you I don't know if you've been fighting all day, you and Kate, or you just had a hard business day, but you said, we just needed to come and like be in a safe place and drink wine and look at each other's faces. And like, people come with this need, and to treat them like a dollar sign or like a transactionary, like a digit. I don't know.
You have to serve that need. You're not serving dinner. Yeah. You're serving the need that the guest showed up with. And you're doing it with the things that you have. In our restaurant, that looks like fine dining or a fancy wine list or a view. But the point is not the view or the food or the wine.
Or even the industry, right?
Those are tools that we have to serve the actual need. Does that make sense?
It's so true, but it's not actually even the industry. Like, this is, again, we're talking about creators and entrepreneurs operating in a completely different world, and what are not just some tactics, but some strategies and some like high level conceptual thoughts. Like, what are we doing? Why are we here? What's happening? And to me, this has just been a beautiful conversation to bring us back to, through the lens of your restaurant and your values, the two co-owner brothers here, Mark and Brian, if you're just joining us, and earlier the chef Brady Williams. Like, you're doing what you can with what you have in order to see the other, to make people feel connected to, and now more than ever before, that is an extraordinary value in a world where we don't actually have the opportunity to hug and to high five and to actually hand someone a coat and to make them feel special. How do we do that digitally? So we're running up against our time here, and it's so I want to put a little bit of a virtual bear hug around the both of you, and if you would extend that to Brady for being a part of our debut 24-hour round-the-clock live broadcast here at creativelive.com/TV. So grateful for letting us behind the scenes in what's not just been working, but what hasn't been working, and what innovation looks like in real time on the ground there. And it's been an absolute treat. Thank you for taking care of my wife, Kate, and I for so many years, and for being a guiding light, a leader in the creative community, the small business community here in Seattle and around the world. Anything you want to say to our people on the way out the door here?
No, Chase Jarvis, we love you, and you're doing good work, and keep it up. Be encouraged. I know that there's a lot of discouraging things out there, but if you could see the look on people's faces when we show up on their doors, if you could meet the 1,000 guests that we get to meet, you would remember of the joy and the hope and the humanity that is out there, and the strength in this town and in this country. So thank you for having us on. It's been an honor.
Oh, it's a treat.
And in 1 hour, next week's menus go online and they sell really fast.
So we're totally late.
Today.
We're supposed to be working on this right now, but
well, what is the best way?
If you want to order dinner for next week, it goes quickly.
And it's at canlis.com, CANLIS.com. It's the best way for people to track you down. And of course, on Insta, you're at Cam.
And Chase, it's so fun. You should see online that people are getting dressed up because everyone's in sweatpants all day. But for our meals, they're putting on dresses and suits, and they're putting on the piano that we're live streaming. And it's like their one chance to just have this, it's so special to be a part of these memories.
And toast to the things that we do have for one moment, for one meal, to raise a glass and say, this is what I'm thankful for, to look someone else in the eye. That's what dinner's about right now. And man, it's a privilege to be just any small piece of that. So
awesome. Well, thank you, gents, so much. And kudos to how you've managed yourselves, your business, the community of which you are a bright spot. And thanks for providing that crab. For Kate and I, we are more than happy to take you up on that. And I'll reach out to you guys offline. We'll make this, we'll package this up nice and special, because I know this is something that people want to hear. We'll make it available to you and everyone in your community as well. And just another thank you for all the people listening and watching here at CreativeLIVE.com/TV. Really appreciate you, gents. And remember, you're also at Canlis Restaurant. Is that right, on Insta?
I don't know. Yes, I think that's what we are.
Cool.
I don't really
All right, and
at Canlis Restaurant.
Great,
and we don't know that.
We are super excited to bring the piano from your dining room tonight at 7 p.m. Pacific. So for those listening, come back and listen to that piano here at CreativeLIVE.com/TV. And love you guys. Thanks so much for being on the show. Much gratitude.
Thanks, Jess.
Awesome.
Take care.
Bye. All right, folks. Again, your good friend here, Chase Jarvis, founder and CEO of Creative Live. We are coming at you starting today and evermore with Creative Live TV. That's CreativeLIVE.com/TV. We recognize that there were people live streaming all over the place in our community, and that we might be able to centralize some of those things, curate some of those feeds. So today we're bringing you, we just heard from Mark and Brian Canlis of Canlis Restaurant here in Seattle. Brady is the James Williams Best New Chef, talking about how they are making things happen and providing some leadership. And I loved how transparent they were about the successes and the failures over the course of the last month, as they've been adopting new business models. They're just pivoting as so many of us are in this really uncertain and crazy time. Just want to also remind you that I'm going to be hosting this thing all day, 12 hours. We started at 10 o'clock this morning. We're going to go till 10 p.m. tonight. And then we will replay this for some folks who missed it, or for the other side of the planet. But starting today, again, we're going to be bringing you into the living rooms, the studios, the dining room tables of many of the world's top creators and entrepreneurs. So, I'm going to take a short break. I'm going to get some throat coat for my tea, and then we're going to come back in just 5 minutes with a performance from one of the world's top cellists, Mr. Joshua Roman. We're going to be cutting to the hills above Santa Barbara, California, where he's at a artist in residency, and you are in for a treat. But before we do, just a quick word so I can take a quick break here, and we'll be back with Joshua Roman playing the cello in a way that you have probably never experienced before. It is truly going to be stunning. I'll be right back.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Chase Jarvis, founder and CEO of CreativeLIVE. You all know that we have more than 2,000 classes and more than 10,000 hours of learning, inspirational, and motivational content on the platform. I'm super excited to announce a new experience on CreativeLIVE. It's called Fast Class. You've told us that you're busy and sometimes it's hard to dive into a full class from start to finish. So essentially, we're now giving you a shortened highlight version of our top CreativeLIVE classes. You can always dive into the full class with 5, 10, or 15 hours of great content. But now, if you're just looking to focus on a few of the highlights or want to be able to skip quickly to something that really interests you, you can now get a shortened fast class version of that class. We're also thinking this might be able to help you explore a new craft and save time while doing it. This is a great tool to curate your learning experience to help create the life that you seek. So you're probably thinking, great, how do I access this new experience on CreativeLIVE? That's easy. All you have to do is be a subscriber to the Creator Pass, and then all this is yours.
We negotiate all the time, from job interviews to client meetings to mattress buying to getting your spouse to do the dishes. Everyone needs to understand the dynamics of powerful negotiation. My name is Vanessa Van Edwards, and I'm a published author and behavioral investigator. I'm going to teach you some never been taught before personal negotiation strategies that you can start using today. By the end of this class, you will be able to define and prove your worth so you can ask for what you need, predict a no coming on and learn how to turn it into a faster yes, spot a boss or client's reservations so you can adjust your pitch on the fly, and much more. Negotiation doesn't have to be an intimidating subject. I've personally tested these techniques and seen the results myself. Now I want to help you too. Join my class, The Power of Negotiation, and start getting the things you deserve today.
Exploring your creativity is essential to your growth as a photographer. Plus, it's a lot of fun. I'm Lindsay Adler, and I'm teaming up with CreativeLIVE to bring you a series of 10 creative portrait challenges. Through these challenges, we're going to be pushing ourselves to try something new. And we'll be exploring things like silhouette, do-it-yourself modifiers, and even making a mess, all in the name of creativity. So I invite you to join me. Visit creativelive.com/CPC to get all of these challenges direct to your inbox.
It's funny because so many people teach us how to save, but no one actually teaches us how to spend. I get it. We've all bought a book on money. It sits on the shelf. We bought a course. We didn't do anything with it. I built psychology into this material so people would take action. You'll find that, wow, if you have debt, you're gonna know the exact month and year that your debt will be paid off. Done. If you have money that's just sitting around in a savings account or a checking account, you're gonna put it to work. In fact, if you wanna project the day that you're gonna have $100,000 or $1 million in the bank, you can actually project that. You're gonna say, you know what? I never really thought about money like this, but this is what I love spending money on. And now I get to do it guilt-free. That is the I will teach you to be rich life.
Did you know that happy people make an average of $1,766 more per year than unhappy people? Or that happy employees take 15 less sick days per year than unhappy employees? People who have higher levels of happiness have more career success, higher income, better romantic relationships, stronger social support, are better able to cope with stress, and even have a better immune system. Here's the best part. We can change our happiness levels. Research has found that about 50% of our happiness is genetic, 10% is due to the environment, and 40% is caused by our behavior and mindset. That means you and I have 40% of our happiness to work with. So let's make the most of it. My name is Vanessa Van Edwards, and I'm coming back to Creative Live to teach an all-new class. I am so excited to talk about the science of happiness. Everything I'm going to teach you is based on a review of over 246 happiness studies, 4 years of research in my lab, the science of people, and happiness data we've collected from over 12,000 people. I was really surprised at some of the happy patterns we found, and I want to teach them to you. I've taken everything we have learned and turned it into a happiness framework. These are 10 days worth of step-by-step lessons that will help you transform, and let's be real, a kind of wooey, fluffy, intangible subject into something real that we can quantify, measure, and improve. You'll learn how to increase daily joy, contentment, and excitement, lessen anxiety, worry, and dread, prevent funks, moodiness, and dips in energy before they start, and know how to snap out of it when they do. I've taught over 42,000 students how to change their lives by making happiness a daily practice. Now I want to help you too. RSVP for my class, The Power of Happiness, and start taking control of your own happiness today.
Hey everybody, welcome back to CreativeLIVE TV. I'm your host and the founder of CreativeLIVE, Chase Jarvis. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We're coming at you live from all over the world. We're about to travel to Santa Barbara, California, but right now you're stuck with me for the next 30 seconds while I introduce our next guest. I am coming at you I am the solo person here in a 3,000-foot studio in our CreativeLIVE headquarters here in Seattle, in what we call the garage. But it brings me great joy to be able to step into the living rooms, the kitchen counters, the studios of our creative community worldwide, where we're tapping into the minds of the most brilliant creators, entrepreneurs, performers. We just got off the phone with, or Skype or whatever, video chat with the Canlis brothers up in Seattle, who are reinventing their restaurant in real time, with the also James Beard award-winning chef Brady Williams from that Canlis restaurant. And now we're about to go into the world of music, where I have the great privilege of introducing one of the top cellists on the planet. Yo-Yo Ma called him the future of classical music in America. I'm grateful to be able to call him my friend. But for now, let us transport you into the home studio here at a artist in residence in Santa Barbara, California, with the one and only Mr. Joshua Roman.
Thank you for being here with us, and thank you, Chase, for having me on. I am really excited to share with you today. I am here in Santa Barbara, where I am an artist in residence with the Squire Foundation, and I've known Chase for years. I used to be in Seattle as the principal cellist of the symphony there, and I still have a series at Town Hall Seattle. So I feel very much my heart is in Seattle with everything going on right now, and I love that I get to share uplifting, hopeful music that connects us. That was something that I would imagine a lot of you have heard before. That's the prelude from the first suite for solo cello by Johann Sebastian Bach. And I first heard it, when I was a little kid, but a lot of people's first time is on a car commercial or something like that. But there it is in its entirety, without green pastures and slick roads as a backdrop. It's beautiful music, and it is where the cello essentially starts as a solo instrument. those suites languished until Pablo Casals found them in the late 19th century and brought them out. And when he brought them out, the world just went crazy for them. He played them everywhere. Composers started getting inspired to write music for the solo cello, which had not really happened before. And ever since then, it's been continual growth. So I'm going to share some of that with you today. The next piece I'm going to play for you is actually written by an American who is still alive, Mark O'Connor. This piece has been arranged many versions. The version I first heard is for Mark O'Connor on the fiddle, and Yo-Yo Ma, a mentor of mine, on the cello, and Edgar Meyer, an amazing bass player, friend, and colleague of mine, on the bass. It's called Appalachia Waltz, one of my favorite crossover albums, and this is the solo cello version. Beautiful, bluegrass, simple, sweet America. Thank you for being here. If you're just joining, that was Appalachia Waltz by Mark O'Connor, an American fiddle player and collaborator with Yo-Yo Ma and Edgar Meyer and other great musical minds. I just love the simplicity of that, the very pure sweetness and cooperation between the two notes moving together all the time. We're going to jump, not in time at all, to another part of the country, the West Coast, with a really fun piece. You know, what you've been hearing is cello, as maybe you know it. Maybe there are a little bit of surprises in there. But this one, if you think you know what a cello is, this one might change your mind. This is by Mark Summer of the Turtle Island String Quartet. It's one of my favorites to play. Lots of energy. If you've got room to stand up and dance, tap your foot, might be a good thing to use that room, use that space. This is Julie O.
Okay, my man, that was amazing. Thank you so much, Joshua.
Thank you. It's fun to actually see somebody on screen when I'm playing. I've been playing Bach every night, and I just see my frozen image because Facebook has issues. But this great to see you. It's awesome. Thank you for having me.
Oh, super, super grateful. And I appreciate the kind words you said before you jumped into your performance about what's going on in Seattle. This is obviously a global thing, right? We are talking about a pandemic that's affected the entire planet, and your ability to bring joy and some performance and entertain us is something we're super grateful for. I don't take it for granted that I have you in my life, and as and the amazing human that you are. So thanks so much for performing for all of us who are watching today. How are things there at your residency? Can you give us a little bit of insight on what your day-to-day is? And obviously we're in quarantine, but describe it for us.
Well, I'm in a beautiful location. I'll whirl around a little bit if I can without knocking anything over.
Yeah.
Can't really see over there. Sorry, I've got my laptop set up. You can kind of see outside there. There's a swimming pool and a hot tub. I mean, I am super lucky right now. This is not my normal life. I am at an artist residency. So it's, I'm super grateful that I have this place, because otherwise right now, I live out of storage currently. I've moved away from New York. And so at the moment, this is it.
Amazing.
But I feel like the moment I realized what was happening and what was going to happen, I just grabbed my cello and I started playing Bach, and I wanted to share that with people. So I immediately started doing that online, and on Facebook, I've been playing a Bach suite for people every day, and it's kind of the only way that I can tell the days apart. So I do those, and I think a lot, and I talk a lot with my friends and colleagues across various. I do a lot with TED and with some podcasts and wellness things right now, and just trying to figure out, what is it that we do? And so I've been working harder than ever, because I believe that this is a moment when we double down on our values, that the values of connectedness, of openness, of vulnerability, those are more important than ever right now. Now is when we see the cracks, and we have to step in and not just Band-Aid them, but really, really fill that void. And, sometimes I wish I was a doctor, but I play the cello. And so I do what I can, and hopefully bring joy and make you feel connected and inspired and creative, so that we can build good things together.
Well, it's such a treat to, I was, when you were performing, I have the benefit of being able to not just sit here at my desk and be on screen. And I was walking around here in the studio. We're in a 15,000-foot building here at CreativeLIVE today, and there are 4 people here. We all have approximately 3,500 square feet to ourselves, but I just got to walk around this beautiful studio that I'm in with your music in my ears, and it was such a treat. So I wanted to say thank you. And I think it's the point that you made about doubling down on our values, and that this is when we're able to find out a little more about who we are, what we're made of. I think it's very possible to both keep everyone in mind who's sick, or who's grieving, or who's really, really struggling right now. It's possible to keep those folks in mind and be a light, be a lighthouse, provide, live through your values and do what you can do, and bring your specific area of expertise, a vision of growth, a possibility to the world. So thank you for epitomizing that, and of course for sharing your mastery of the cello with us. We've had the opportunity to collaborate a couple times in the past, and I don't remember, it was Midge was the name of your former cello, I believe. This is a different one. Is that true? Who are we with today?
No, this is Midge.
It is.
You are with Midge. Yes, this is Midge. She was made in 1899 in Venice by a man named Giulio Degani, and Midge and I have been together since late 2008, and I've cheated on her a couple of times with Stradivarius or Montagnana cellos, but she's very forgiving. So,
well, I remember we collaborated and flew you from New York to Seattle for a something we were working on together, and I remember she flies well. She has her own airplane seat, and deservedly so. So it's nice to see you as well, Midge. My understanding is that we're going to hear a couple more tracks from you, and I think that's why the people are here. So I'm going to shut my trap, but I do want to extend another thank you, a debt of gratitude for coming on and for entertaining us here at Creative Live and across all the different social platforms. You're welcome on this platform anytime. Maybe we can make this a routine thing. As you know, we're bringing this live stream 24/7 now to be able to go into the living rooms and the music studios and in artists and residencies in Santa Barbara, California. But you're welcome here anytime, and maybe you can usher in a couple more tracks for us and let us know what we're going to be hearing.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you, Chase. I love it. I'd be happy to come in. I think, music is great, and if you don't hear it, it's not great. So we got to get it out there.
We do.
I can play all day alone. Doesn't mean anything. So thank you for letting me share. I'm going to take you now somewhere even farther than we were, farther removed from maybe what the standard idea of a cello is. And this is a piece that I've actually worked on for a while and haven't practiced recently, but I've pulled it up not only because it fits within this program so well, and I really want to show you something crazy, something absolutely crazy in a really fun way, absolutely crazy, but also because the man who wrote it, Krzysztof Penderecki, did pass away over the weekend, and I never met him. I really wanted to play this for him. I never met him. I have a lot of colleagues who knew him well, and so thoughts go to his family and the colleagues who did that. But this is one of those pieces that just rocked my world, and it's super creative. The key to this one is that it's called a Capriccio. It's Capriccio for Siegfried Palm, and basically that means it's not very serious. So it is in the vein of music that you might think is crazy serious and academic, but actually, even though there's super geekiness underneath, this is just a really fun romp, and there are some musical jokes thrown in that I don't think you have to know much about music to get. So we'll find out. I'm going to play that for you now. This is Krzysztof Penderecki's Capriccio Siegfried Palm from 1968.
Oh my God, that was amazing.
Isn't that wild?
Oh my God. I don't think I've ever seen I mean, I've seen you perform a lot, man, at a lot of very special places, but I have not seen anything like that with the cello before. Amazing. Thank you.
Yeah. I managed to break some bow hairs. That's fun. Don't worry. It's just horsehair. We get it. You know, actually, I am a little concerned because normally you get your bow rehaired every few months. But right now, I don't think bow rehairs are an essential service.
Yeah.
So I have to be careful. So that's tricky. Maybe learn to rehair your own bows. That, if anyone's just joining, by the way, that was Capriccio for Siegfried Palm from 1968. By Krzysztof Penderecki, an amazing Polish composer who just passed away, but during his lifetime managed to write incredibly moving, exciting, and avant-garde music all at the same time, which is not easy to do, to be at the forefront intellectually, creatively, and also emotionally. So, fun piece.
Wow. And to start off with Bach and to now go like crazy avant-garde at the other end of the spectrum, obviously demonstrates your range, but also your, I think, what seems like your desire to show what's possible with the cello or with any artistic medium, like that range can be a strength. How do you look at how do you think about it? That's just me. Maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, and I know you, so we've talked about it before, but talk to us about that.
Yeah, I think you're right on. I think classical music has had an image problem, and it's of our own creation, and a lot of it has to do with trying to create an idealized setting for the music to happen where you hear it perfectly and there are no distractions, and I think that's awesome. I love that. It's one of my favorite things is to gather with thousands of people in a concert hall and be the star. It's amazing. I love it. But on the flip side, like what is it actually that the tradition is, and does it allow room for creativity? And that's where I actually fall back on a quote from Gustav Mahler, that tradition is not the worship of the ashes, but the fuel of the fire. So if I really want to be looking back at Bach and Beethoven and Mozart and using them as my role models, that means that I have to be creative and I have to be exploring, because that's what they did. I don't just play their music and leave it at that. That's not really continuing the tradition. That's just paying homage to the product. But at the center of it all, creativity is alive. Creativity is always pushing boundaries, and that's why I do that. It helps me figure out where I stand as an artist, where my voice is, which also helps me then to be comfortable relating to other people and their voices. And I think that's incredibly important. So that's where I fall. I want to be like my favorite composers of the past and push the boundaries.
Well, it's clear that you're doing that. I've never seen anybody do what you just did with the cello. And I've seen you play a lot, so
it's true. It's true,
and it to my great pleasure. And I'm a lucky guy. So thank you so much for everything you're doing for us across this hour. For the folks who are just joining us, I'm Chase Jarvis, founder and CEO of CreativeLIVE. We're today debuting our you can call it user-generated, but it's really a curated stream, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're going to be either playing live performances. We're going to go to the studios, the kitchen counters, the dining room tables of our community, where we are all, or most of us around the world, are experiencing the quarantine that as the unconscionable, unforeseen gift, trying to find a silver lining in this pandemic. We said at the beginning of this broadcast, or this hour, that it can both be true. We can feel terrible for the people who are really in harm's way and for the people who are on the front lines fighting it, and try and provide hope and inspiration and value, maybe even entertainment, dare I say, for both those can be true and present at the same time. And I'm sitting here with one of my dear friends, Joshua Roman, TED Senior Fellow, longtime hero in the classical music scene in the world, and certainly here in Seattle, where he was a prodigy with the Seattle Symphony early. How old were you when you started playing with the Seattle Symphony?
I was the principal cellist there from the age of 22 to 24.
I think you were the youngest. You were the youngest person in the whole building. You were the youngest person in the whole building.
It was funny. Yeah, I think the next youngest person was like 5 years older than me. I can't remember. It's Sayaka. If you're watching, I hope I didn't make you older than you are. But
no, well, yeah. Thank you so much for being a part of the CreativeLIVE community of Seattle. As many folks know, this is one of the first and hardest hit cities. So want folks out there to know that we can empathize with you. Other countries, some of whom are further along in the curve than we are, and others who may be behind us. But just want to say thank you for being a leader and a creator in the trenches with all of us, despite, as you said earlier, the sort of perception that classical music brings. You do such a good job of personalizing it and simplifying it for those of us who might consider ourselves on the outside. But that, brings me to what I think I got a little preview on what you were planning on playing next, as a way to just, I don't know, bring us back into your music world and share with us what you have in mind.
Yes, so I'm going to tie that all together before I do it, in that you actually, Chase, have long been a role model for me in terms of opening up the process and putting yourself out there. And that's something that I'm learning to do, that I've tried to do as I've gone along. But now I really feel like if I'm going to inspire other musicians, it shouldn't be just with, hey, look at me, I'm great, and I can make you cry. Hopefully I can. but really, like, here are the questions I ask. Here's what I'm going through. Here's a peek behind the scenes. And so I'm starting to do more of that. And in addition to the thing that I'm about to play for you, which is definitely that for me, I finally have a Patreon page that's working. I've been doing that for almost 2 years now, and that's been interesting to share multi-track cello tracks and like open practice sessions and stuff. So that's my little pitch. Check it out.
No, please
support an artist.
Well, let's be really crystal clear here. What is the best way for people to support you? And is it just patreon.com/Joshua
Roman? Or joshuaroman.com/Patreon.
Awesome.
Either way, I would say joshuaroman.com/patron or Patreon. I made sure it's very easy to get to. And I have special goodies for cellists there, but most of the page is actually dedicated to just putting music out that I make myself. And it's a lot of fun. It's something I've been building, something that I hope to turn into a viable way to show other musicians how we can be more present, and not just in the concert halls, but share the music that is great, that we love with people. So yeah, if you could check out and support my Patreon page, that's amazing. I'd really appreciate that. And also just any arts organization that's local to you. Everyone who relies on donations is struggling right now. They're not coming in as much as they do. So if you have a local arts organization that you love, consider giving to them, because they could use that support.
Amazing.
So yeah,
Amazing.
Absolutely. So putting myself out there, both in the fashion of my good friend Chase, and showing my process, but this is a part of that artistically, not just in terms of the business model, but this is artistically something that I've been working on that is unusual for a cellist to do, something that I feel for me has a lot of meaning, and that's why I share it, even though it makes me really nervous every time. My hands are sweating already. I don't get nervous. I play for thousands of people in front of a professional orchestra for a living, but this scares me, and that's why I think I have to do it. To me, it's a beautiful message of hope and something that we can all do together. I, being a preacher's kid, no longer religious, but the words here, they have special meaning, and you should join in if you know it. Well, I've heard that there's a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord, but you don't really care for music, do you? Well, it goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, and the major lift. The baffled king composing hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Your faith was strong, but you needed proof. You saw her bathing on the roof, her beauty and the moonlight overthrew you. She tied you to her kitchen chair. She broke your throne and she cut your hair, and from your lips she drew the hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Baby, I've been here before. I've seen this room and I've walked this floor, you know. I used to live alone before I knew you. And I've seen your flag on the marble arch. And love is not a victory march, it's a call. and it's a broken hallelujah, 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 There was a time when you let me know what's really going on below, but now you never show that to me, do you? But remember when I moved in you, and the holy dove was moving too, and every breath we drew is hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Maybe there's a God above, but all I've ever learned from love was how to shoot somebody who outdrew you. And it's not a cry that you hear at night. It's not somebody who's seen the lights. It's a cold and it's a broken hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Whoa. Man. It's a little misty in here. I don't know what's going on, man. Wow. Thank you.
Leonard Cohen.
Man.
Yeah.
That's, I think, one of the finest songs ever written. And I have seen you perform that once before. And I'm speechless. I want to say thank you. It's so, so special to see you, your mastery in real time of the cello, but also your soul as an artist being shared with all of us. So thank you so much for sharing that with us, bud.
Thank you, Chase. Thank you for having me and for being an inspiration to do that, to go beyond the comfortable performance, the perfection, and to really open up. I don't take that lightly, and I think that's important. So I hope it brings togetherness.
Oh man. Well, I'll just let you know, some people from around the world. Beth says Joshua is amazing. What a beauty to have in my work from home office. Stephanie says this is great. I've never had a lunchtime concert before. Julie is applauding. Michael Clark, this is amazing. Thanks for offering this free broadcast. We've got some links to your Patreon page emerging. Serious goosebumps, says Karina. JP, absolutely incredible. This was so beautiful. Ms. Siegfried, love pouring in from around the world, and also from me to you, man. Thank you so much for being a part of our initial foray here at CreativeLIVE TV, creativelive.com/TV, where we're into your artist in residency here. You hung up a white sheet behind you, but I know you're show us the rest of the world here.
Everything. I've got high ceilings, so I can get nice acoustics, but everything is a glass surface in here, so I had to cover it up.
Understood.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I hope to come back, and in the meantime, I'm also on Facebook and Instagram and Patreon every day. So definitely
amazing. Let's give some people some coordinates. Where would you like them to go? I know your website is key also for the Patreon page, but give people a little direction on where to go to find more about you.
Absolutely. So joshuaroman.com/patron is where I would go to get some exclusive content and inside access and all of that, and to support what I'm doing, definitely. But you can also go to Facebook and Instagram. Those are Joshua Roman Cello, all one word. And I do live performances, largely supported right now, since there are no concerts, by my patrons on Patreon. So much love to those. And on Facebook, I've been turning those into fundraisers for Doctors Without Borders and other groups. So every day, Bach and more on those platforms: Facebook, Instagram, and Patreon. Again, Facebook and Instagram, Joshua Roman Cello. And for supporting me and getting exclusive content, joshuaroman.com/patron.
Amazing. Well, I'm going to call you a little bit later today and say thank you again 100 more times. But from the worldwide creative community that's watching right now, I want to say thank you again for your performance today. I'm super excited. We're 100% going to have you back as soon as we can. And in the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy, and thank you so much for sharing.
You too. Yes. Stay healthy, everyone. And thank you to everyone who's working to make it possible for the rest of us to stay at home. We really appreciate it.
Grateful. All right. Thank you, Joshua. Again, I'm Chase Jarvis, founder and CEO of CreativeLIVE. I want to say thank you so much, everyone out there in the world, for paying attention to this page, to creativelive.com/TV. This is a live video feed meant to entertain, inspire, and connect everyone out there in the world. I am going to be passing the mic to a colleague here shortly. And if you are new to this page, you're just now arriving, if you go to that URL I just mentioned, you can see the schedule for the rest of the day. We heard from the Canlis brothers earlier, the award-winning chef, James Beard winner, Brady Williams. We just heard a performance from a renowned cellist, Joshua Roman. And we're now going to Christina Mittermeier. She is a Nat Geo photographer, a legend in the photographic world, in preserving this beautiful planet that we live on. She's going to be doing a portfolio review. She's going to be talking about her Seed Legacy, which is a project that she and a handful of others, Paul Nicklin and a handful of other renowned photographers who are doing their part to help keep our planet around. We're then going to go to Andrew Scrivani, the New York Times food photographer, who's going to cook us a meal and then photograph it. We've got spoken word poetry coming up from InQ. We'll talk about his new book. He's a National Poetry Slam champion. We're going to hear about finance, personal finances, and about staying connected during this social distancing period. And we're going to go back to Canlis at 7 p.m. this evening for a piano concert. So lots in store for you now. I'm going to sign off and hand the mic over to my colleague, Kenna Klosterman, who's going to usher in an hour of collaboration, an hour of creativity and photography with Christina Mittermeier. So take it away, Kenna and Christina.